Hello and welcome back to another video on Unpack Technologies. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to improve the window management system on macOS. This will involve downloading a third-party tool called Tiles, and this will sort of mimic the window management system that operating systems like Windows 10 and 11 have, where you can drag a window to the side of the screen to snap it into a different location. And it will also have added functionality like keyboard shortcuts and more, which is something that macOS doesn't have by default. So let's get straight into it. Alright, so to start off, we need to download the app Tiles for Mac. So we're going to go to the web browser. In this case, I'm using Safari. And then what you're going to search is Tiles for Mac. Now, it needs to be Tiles for Mac in the search engine. If you just search for Tiles, it's going to come up with like Tiles for housing and all that. So definitely make sure you put in Tiles for Mac. Now, the website you're looking for is on Google. It's the top result here. It's freemacsoft.net. You want to make sure you go to that one. That's the legitimate website here. So we'll go to this one here. Give it a moment to load. And the website is a little bit outdated here, but it still lets you download the app. So what you need to do is under the download section, you can go version 1.1 for macOS 10.10 and later. So as long as you have macOS Yosemite or later, you'll be able to run this, which will be pretty much all the Macs are in use at this point. I don't think many people are using Mavericks or older for any daily tasks. Alright, so you can see that that's now downloaded here, so we can now quit out of Safari. And then what we need to do is go to the download section of the dock, and then you need to open tileslatest.dmg. So we'll give that a moment to open, and then it will open a little window that says drag the Tiles icon on the applications folder to install. So we just drag this onto the applications folder, like every other installation. You'll hear it made the copying sound, so we know that that's copied. So now we can eject the Tiles app here off the computer, and all we need to do now is open it. So we'll search Tiles, and we'll go open it there. It will say Tiles is an app download from the internet. Are you sure you want to open it? This is trustworthy, so we can click open, and you'll see that it has opened Tiles for the first time. So it's giving us a little introduction as to what Tiles does and how it sort of works. So it says drag a window around the edges of the screen to snap it, or use keyboard shortcuts. It's that easy. So they're saying how easy their program makes it to snap windows everywhere. So we'll click OK here, and you'll see that this is the little Tiles icon in the menu bar. So if you click that, it opens up the Tiles little quick menu here, and you've got all your different options here. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to open a few different apps. So we'll have Safari. I'll go to Apple's website on that. We'll go to System Preferences. Maybe we'll go to Notes, and then maybe also Reminders. We can give this a go here. So what we're going to do is, with Tiles open, you can see that our desktop is a little bit of a mess at the moment. But all we need to do is, let's say you want to have a split screen with Safari and maybe a couple of other apps. What you need to do for that is just drag Safari. So I'm going to make it on the left of my window. So I'm going to drag it all the way to the left. You'll see that it highlights the little area where you can snap it to. So I've got a few different snapping options as I move it up and down. You'll see that that tile resizes. But I just want it to cover half the screen. So I'm just going to snap it there, and you'll see it snaps into position just like it does on Windows. Now, let's say I want Notes, maybe in the upper right-hand corner. So I'll snap it, and you'll see by default, if you drag into the middle, it's going to try and do a split screen snap. But what I want it to do is go up into the corner. So if you move around, you'll see that the little highlighted zone resizes, and I'm just going to snap it into the top right. And then for reminders, I'm going to go top left. And you'll see that we've got this lovely little split screen area here to work on all of our different sort of applications and working on different things. So that's really handy, just being able to switch between different apps. And then when you remove the app out of the split screen section, when you take it out, by default, you can change this later, but by default, it'll snap to its original size. So you see that there, it resizes to how it was before you snapped it. So if I remove Safari, it goes back full screen. And if I can find reminders here, that will also go to its original size. And if you ever want to make something full screen, you can always just drag it up to the top, not too far that it goes into that, but drag it up to the top and you'll see it highlights it. And then you can see that it works like so, and then it will go back to its original size. So now it's time to sort of dive into some of the settings on Tiles itself. So I'm just going to minimize those so we can demonstrate later. But if we go into the Tiles section on the menu bar, you'll see that they've got all these presets here. So if I go back into Safari, we can select some of these presets here that maybe aren't available on the normal snapping assist. So for example, you could have 2/3 center. That's something that you can't do on the normal snapping assist, or maybe 2/3 right, things like that. The snapping assist will only let you do half right and all that. So this lets you get some more in depth with your window management in this little section here. And then if you want to change any of your particular preferences here, at the top you'll see it says preferences. So we'll open a little preferences window. So let's have a look at this. The first page is general. So what I generally recommend is, if you're using this all the time, tick this button to launch Tiles at login. That means it will always be open every time you log in to your Mac, which I think is really handy. So you're not having to open it every time. It's just ready to go, and it feels like it's just default macOS that's always running. You can choose whether it shows tiles in the menu bar. So that will just decide whether it shows this little button here. You can turn that on or off depending if you want a clean menu bar or not. And then you can decide whether you want animations. I usually leave those on because it looks a bit nicer. But if you turn it off, you'll see that it just sort of is quite static. When you do it, there's no real animation. Like if you turn that on, you'll see that the snapping assist is much nicer looking. Also, you can decide your window padding. So by default, this is 0. So it means that the windows will always be right next to each other, like so, if I do that. But if I change the window padding to maybe the maximum, which is 20, it will show you how much of a gap it will leave between the windows. So if I've now set that to 20, if I do this again, you'll see that it now leaves a 20-point gap on all sides of each window. So it means it sort of looks more floating. It's not really touching any edges. You've got more space in between. So it sort of just depends on what look you're going for and how that helps you with your productivity. Generally, for me personally, I just leave this at 0, but you can decide whether you want that or not. And you can also decide whether you want full screen windows or not. So then, this is a big feature of Tiles. If we go into the hotkeys section up the top, it will then show us all the different commands that we can use to go to each of the different locations on the screen that are seen here. So there's lots of different commands here. So center is Option Command C by default. And you can see all these different options here. And you can change each one of them. So let's say I wanted to change what half left did. And I might go Command Shift H, for example. Something that I'm going to remember. And then half right might be Command Shift G or something. I'm just making those up on the spot, but you can customize these to whatever you want. So because some of these you might not remember exactly, but you can customize these to, anything of your choosing. Just be careful that it won't let you do things that are in use by other applications or default shortcuts. So you can't just make something, for example, Command C. If I try to do that, it will say the shortcut can't be used because it's already in use by the edit copy menu item. So you can't use any shortcuts that are already in use, but if you've got any other shortcuts, which there's a billion different keyboard shortcuts you could do, then feel free. You can just change these out. And if you ever make a mistake and think that you just want to get back to the default, you can just click Restore Defaults here and then click Restore Hotkeys, and it goes back to all the original hotkeys. And if you don't want them at all, you can just disable them altogether, but I'd usually recommend leaving them on. Alright, and the final section here is Snap to Edges. So this is sort of like the Hot Corners menu on macOS, where you can decide what each edge does. So whether you want the top left-hand corner to do snap the window to the top left, or whether you want it to be a half left or a first third, things like that. You can decide all of those commands, and you can even decide one for the bottom, like whether you want it to be bottom half or sort of centered like that. You can really customize this to your liking. You can also change the snap zone thickness, so how much room it gives you to snap it into each corner. By default, that's 10. And then you can also decide whether there's a delay before activation. So if I turn that up to the maximum here, you'll see that when you do that, you have to hold it there for 2 seconds before it will actually show you the option there. So that's a little bit slow for my liking, but you could go just a few milliseconds just to sort of make sure that there's no accidental sort of drags to the side. I still usually leave that as none, but you can decide what you want to do for that. And then you can also just change these two settings here. Snap windows when moved to the edges of the screen. If you turn that off, it just removes that functionality altogether, where you can't snap it at all, no matter what corner of the screen you go to. And you can also decide whether you want to restore the previous window size when it's moved again. So as I mentioned earlier, by default, when you snap it to somewhere, when you go to move it back out, it goes back to the default window size, as you can see there. If you turn that off, when you snap it, it will then remain in that snapped size, no matter where you take it. So then you have to manually resize it to your liking, which can be a little bit tedious, but if that's the way you want your computer to run, then that's the option there. And then finally, there's just a little about page where you can check for updates, things like that. And yeah, that's about it to tiles. So it's actually, it may look like a very simple application at the start, but once you really dive into its settings, it actually does have a really large amount of options, and you've got so much customizability, and it will really help your workflow if you're the type of user who loves using keyboard shortcuts or dragging windows to different locations, things like that, that you do sort of miss out on Windows, on macOS when compared to the Windows operating system, for example. So this will really help to bring that functionality back, and it does feel really seamless. Like, you forget it's a third-party app most of the time. It just works so well. So yeah, I'm really pleased about this app. I know there's a lot of other apps that are available, but Tiles is my personal recommendation. I've used it a lot, and it's also free. So that's probably the main reason I use it, because it's not paid. There's a lot of paid apps which I'm sure probably do offer some better functionality and maybe some nicer applications, but for me, this Tiles app works absolutely fine. So yeah, let me know in the comments below how you went and how you find the Tiles app, and hopefully you had some great success with performing this process. Thanks for watching this video on Unpack Technologies. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.